Continuing on with the section, I will work on question 4, 6, 8, 10, and so forth up to 26. We have number 4, the absolute value of x plus 8 equals to 6. X plus 8 is equal to 6. Recall that there are two sides. X plus 8 is equal to negative 6, and x plus 8 is equal to 6. So you will have the negative side and a positive side. Subtract 8 to both sides, and x will yield negative 14. So that's one solution. The other one, subtract 8, and x will give you negative 2. Again, you have two solutions that can make the absolute value true. So I'm going to resolve. Negative 14 plus 8 should be 6. Negative 14 plus 8 is negative 6. And absolute value of negative 6 is 6. And is 6 equal to 6? Both numbers are equal to each other, so therefore they are true. The same we can go with negative 2. So I'm going to plug in negative 2 in for x and just work out the numbers. Negative 2 plus 8 is 6. And the absolute value of 6 is 6. So that's also true. Therefore, your solution will be x equals negative 14, comma, negative 2. Continuing on with the questions. For question number 6, absolute value of 5b minus 10 is equal to 25. So absolute value of 5b minus 10 is equal to 25. Split up, so we have the negative version of 25 and a positive version of 25. 5b minus 10 is equal to negative 25. And a positive side, 5b minus 10 is equal to 25. And just work out throughout the numbers. So plus 10, plus 10. I'll do it for both equations at the same time. Those two cancels out. 5b is equal to negative 15. This one's 5b is equal to 35. Divide 5 to both sides. That cancels out. B is equal to negative 3. Cancels out, and b is equal to 7. You have two solutions, and expected to see this, because there are two sides to absolute value functions. We can test them out just to make sure. So by the revision process, 5 times negative 3 minus 10, take the absolute value, should give us 25. That is negative 15 minus 10, which is negative 25. And 25 is equivalent to 25. So that is true. And we can do the same thing with the 7. 5 times 7 minus 10, take the absolute value, and it should give us 25. That's 35. This is 25. Take the absolute value, and you get 25 is equal to 25, which is true. If that's the case, your solution will be b equals negative 3, comma 7. Continuing on from the book. Question number 8. Absolute value of 4y plus 2 equals 14. According to absolute value functions, let's split up the 14 so that we have the negative version and a positive version. Rewrite everything else. So it's 4y plus 2 equals 2. 4y plus 2 is equal to. And now just work out the system. Going to subtract 2 to both sides. This was negative 16 is equal to 4y. This, subtract 2 to both sides. 4y is equal to 12. And from here, we can just divide 4 to both sides. Y will be negative 4. Divide 4 to both sides. And y will be 3. You can test out that these values are actually true by revising that their numerical values are indeed true. 4 times negative 4 plus 2 should yield 14. That is negative 16 plus 2, which is negative 14, and then taking the absolute value will give us 14 is equal to 14, which is a true statement. We can also do the same thing with the 3. 4 times 3 plus 2 is equal to 14. That is 12 plus 2, 14. Take the absolute value, which is 14 is equal to 14, which is a true statement. So therefore, you will have two solutions. Y is equal to negative 4, comma 3. Continuing on from the book. So we're looking at question number 10. 10 reads the absolute value of negative 5a plus 7 gives us 22. Unlike the first three questions where you immediately split off the absolute value functions so that you have the positive and negative version, for this, we have the plus 7, which is outside the absolute value. So we cannot split the problem up first. We need to subtract the 7 to both sides because it's outside the absolute value functions first. 22 minus 7 is 15. And I'm going to rewrite the absolute value of negative 5a. And again, just like with the other problems, we're going to split this up so we have the negative 15 version and then we have the 15 version. Negative 5a, negative 5a. Divide negative 5 to both sides. A will be 3. Divide negative 5 to both sides. A will be negative 3. We can revise that these solutions are actually true. Negative 5 times 3. This is negative 15. Absolute value of negative 15 is 15. And this is 22 is equal to 22, which is a true statement. And we can do the same thing with a equals negative 3. Negative 5 times negative 3 plus 7 is equal to 22. That is 15. Absolute value of 15 is 15. This is 22 is equal to 22, which is also a true statement. So therefore, you will have two solutions again, where a is equal to negative 3, comma 3. So either solution will make the statement true. Onwards to question number 12. Reads absolute value of 2x minus 5 plus 2 is equal to 13. Absolute value of 2x minus 5 plus 2 is equal to 13. So question number 12 is pretty similar to question number 10, where in the previous question, the plus 7 was outside of parentheses, so you have to do something to that plus 7 in order to focus on the absolute value. So we have to do the same thing with this. That plus 2 is outside the absolute value, so we need to subtract it first before we can split off the absolute value. And now up to this step is just like any other absolute value functions. We're going to have the negative version and we're going to have the positive version. And by this step, you can just drop out the parentheses, the absolute value. And then now just work out throughout the question. I'm going to add 5 to both sides. Subtract, this is 2x is equal to negative 6 plus 5 is negative 6. This side cancels out, 2x. 11 plus 5 is 16. I'm going to divide 2 to both sides. X will be negative 3. Divide 2 to both sides. X will give us 8. And then, just like with the other problems, we're going to revise just to make sure that these solutions are actually true. 2 times negative 3 minus 5 plus 2 is equal to 13. 2 times negative 3 is negative 6. Negative 6 minus 5 is negative 11. Absolute value of negative 11 is 11 plus 2 is equal to 13, which is a true statement. The same thing if we applied 8 in for x. 2 times 8 minus 5 plus 2 is equal to 13. 2 times 8 is 16 minus 5 plus 2 is equal to 13. 16 minus 5 is 11. Take the absolute value of 11 will give us 11 plus 2 will be 13, which is also a true statement. So therefore, you have two solutions that can make the absolute value function true. X equals negative 3, comma 8. Question number 14 reads absolute value of 7 minus x plus 2 is equal to 12. Absolute value of 7 minus x plus 2 is equal to 12. So 14 is a lot like 10 and 12. We have to do something to the outside number before we can actually split up the absolute value function. So I'm going to subtract 2 to both sides because that's the opposite of a plus 2. From here, the absolute value is by itself, so we can split up so that we have the negative version and a positive version of 10. And just rewrite everything else. We can drop out the absolute value because we have already split up the work. And then from here, we can just do the work. Subtract 7. This is negative x is equal to negative 17. It's a negative 1 times x. So we're going to divide negative 1 to both sides. X equals 17. Subtract 7 to both sides. Negative x is equal to 3. This is negative 1 times x. So we're going to divide negative 1 to both sides. X will be negative 3. And then we can check to see that these solutions are actually true. 7 minus 17 plus 2 is equal to 12. That is negative 10. Plus 2 is equal to 12. Absolute value of negative 10 is 10 plus 2 is equal to 12, which is a true statement because 10 plus 2 is equal to 12. And we can do the same thing with negative 3. Absolute value of 7 minus negative 3 plus 2 is equal to 12. 2 negatives, it's a positive, so plus. So 7 plus 3 is 10. Plus 2 is equal to 12. Absolute value of 10 is 10. Plus 2 is equal to 12. And 12 is equal to 12, which is also a true statement. So therefore, your two solutions will be negative 3, comma 17. It's usually traditional to write the smallest number first.